Hello, welcome to Instructional Design from the Ground Up. My name is Denise Cardona. If you are looking for ways to become a better instructional designer, you're in the right place. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we go live and when we upload new videos that will help you out in your journey for ISD. Today, Dr. Chuck Hodel and I are going to talk about pilot testing, why it's important, what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are if there are any. So stick with us. We are coming right up. You have instructional design questions. We discuss answers. Today we're going to talk about pilot testing, why it's critical, what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, if there are any. So, Chuck, I have some questions about pilot testing because I ran into something recently where I probably could have done some pilot testing and avoided some headaches, and actually some headaches for the end user.
I can't believe it.
I
Yeah,
know.
pilot testing. Okay, so this pilot testing is something people don't do until they need it, right? So you fall down this cliff, you put a course out there, a program out there, and it has horrible things happen, or kind of horrible things happen, or it doesn't do what you expect it to do, and then all of a sudden you think back, how could I have done this better? And all of us need pilot testing, whether it's of course, whether it's online, classroom, distributed, through the mail, doesn't matter. And pilot testing is part of every field. So if you're a software engineer, they call it alpha or beta testing. And if you're a race car driver, it's what you do on Saturday when you race on Sunday. It's you've got to practice. You've got to find out what you have to tweak and what you can do better with. So pilot testing for instructional designers is really a key aspect of what we do. And it's often not done because it costs money, because it costs time. It's all a budget issue. But it's something that you can do in a lot of ways that doesn't cost you a lot of money. And it doesn't take overhead like you think it might. So as we go through these things and we talk about different ways to do pilot testing, what you need to remember is these are the times when you can fail safely. You can make mistakes. You can find out the obvious problems without having it show up in your evaluations and not ruining your reputation or damaging it, or people will start to question, can you really design? Because frankly, all of us make mistakes. And there is no perfect design, there is no perfect course, there is no perfect approach because populations change and content changes. And all of these things are part of this puzzle that we use for ISD. So pilot testing, lots of stuff, but there's ways that you can do it that are not really that cumbersome. You can do it pretty cool and pretty quick. So do we want to talk about your situation, or do we want to talk about,
Let's
you
talk about my
know,
situation. Let's
yeah,
just
let's
rip
dig
the
into
Band-Aid
yours because
off
I'm
and
now intrigued. I have no idea what this is, so fire away.
okay, well, this was a very informal little training program module that I put together for an organization that I support. We are having this online, this virtual conference the entire month of July.
Wow.
And yes, so now we are recruiting volunteers as well as the board of directors. I serve on the board of directors for this organization. And together, we're going to compile a list of potential hosts to be able to host or be like I call it the Zoom master, but I guess maybe that's a term. I don't know. Zoom
It is now.
masters. Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of Zoom masters that are going to be helping us out at this conference. And what that person's going to do is launch the webinar. They're going to launch the ads because we have sponsored ads, we have sponsored video placements, all these wonderful things, right, to help fund this program that we're running. Well, we need somebody to teach people how to do all of this because it can be a
Hmm.
little bit intimidating for people who are
It's a lot
not
of stuff.
Zoom masters by trade.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that everybody that's serving on this board and who's volunteering are not people who do this on a regular basis. So they needed some guidance. So I said, oh, well, I'm a graduate student in the ISD program at UMBC. Let
Let
me
me help.
use this as an example, as part of my portfolio to try to put together a small little training module to help orient everybody on how to be a Zoom master. So I worked very diligently to create all of the steps, right? All of those steps that you would take to be able to do everything step by step by step. And then I put
Mm-hmm.
together a video doing screen captures and video recording of my screen, talking them through it. Very comprehensive, I thought,
I'm sure, knowing you.
right?
Yeah.
Thought it was.
Yeah.
So I sent it off to the organization and said, here you go. Here's a PDF with every step you need with screenshots, as well as a video if you are more of a person who likes to watch a video to learn these things.
And when you're really happy, email me and tell me what a great job I did.
Yes, right,
That's what we all want to hear, right? Oh,
right?
wow, Chuck.
Yes, this
You
is
know, I
amazing.
didn't know it could get this good. So
Right. I was
congratulations.
pretty proud of myself. I was patting
Yeah.
myself on the back. I thought this was
Uh-huh.
really good.
And then you got a sore arm because somebody said what?
Yeah. So we did we leading up to this conference once a week. They are going to now start doing something called a virtual series to kind of just preliminary type of programs to lead up to this big virtual conference. So we're having sponsored ads for these. So one of the board of directors said, I'll volunteer to be the host. And we were like, great. So she had, I don't know, maybe there were 100 people that showed up to this particular series. And she had to run a sponsored ad. And she just, for the life of her, could not figure out how to get herself out of full screen mode, how to share the image, how to share the
Right.
video ad. It was just a big
Right.
blah blah blah.
Very common. Very
And
common now.
it was in front of 100
Yeah.
people, and she was
Yep.
mortified.
Yep.
And I found out the next day when I went to produce the video, and I was like, okay, we have a
Mm-hmm.
really big problem here. I did not test
Yeah.
this out with somebody to see if these steps made sense to somebody else. Chuck, they made sense to me. I'm like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
okay. Boom, ba
Oh,
boom, ba boom, ba
sure.
boom. When I
It
do
made
it, it
perfect sense.
works. But I
And that's
left.
why we say in instructional design, never design a course for yourself, right?
I
I mean,
know.
besides the pilot
Oh,
testing thing.
so
So, but that's a common mistake.
yeah,
And it's not
I
really a
learned
mistake,
I learned some.
but
I learned I left out some critical
very
pieces
common.
of information
Yeah.
because they were stuck in my head. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't. I didn't even think I needed to say the things that were in my brain because hey,
Right.
everybody should know
Because you
this.
already knew that. See, that's a common thing when designers start designing more complex courses, is they're assumptive about what other people know. And you see this often in pilot testing because you'll see learners that you think know something. You know, they have a certain set of prerequisites or knowledge coming into this that you think they should have, but they don't have it, or they don't have it in a way that you think they had it, even though you may have had it. So, what pilot testing allows you to do is to have that moment when, okay, I understand what you want me to do, but I don't know how to get there. Can you better explain to me what these steps are? And so you go back to basic ISD stuff with this, and you think, okay, do I need them to show mastery? Do I need them to practice these skills? Do I need to do whatever? And you almost always find in a situation that needs to be more complex. It needs to be a more dense design. And so take this in any subject area, any delivery modality, whether it's classroom, whether it's online, whatever you're going to do. And pilot testing will tell you very quickly, where your issues are. So I always want designers to fail in a safe environment, just like I want learners to fail in a safe environment. That's why you do application feedback 3 times and get this whole process going so that I can practice these skills and I can make sure that if I'm going to make an error as a learner, I want to do it with Chuck standing there, Denise standing there, or on the other end of the computer, and not in front of 100 people or 1,000 people. Um, and so this goes back to the whole notion of pilot testing. So what are we trying to accomplish? What we want to do is find the rough spots. Okay, where are the things that could go better? And I always have Chuck stories, and I
Of
remember,
course. Let's hear a
you
Chuck
know,
story.
the Chuck story for today is we were doing a nationwide project for a group of individuals that work out of a house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You can make any assumptions you want to about that. And this was not a political content area. This was completely apolitical. It was around a piece of legislation. They gave us 2 weeks to put together a 2-hour course that was gonna be delivered in every congressional district in the country. Now just think about that for a second. And we were gonna have a group of 60 to 70 potential instructors come in 2 weeks to go over this course and essentially teach them how to do it. It was gonna be the train the trainer. But what we decided was we needed a pilot train the trainer because this was a lot of very dense content, as you can imagine. Legislative stuff is pretty dense. And to try to put this in a format that anybody at a community meeting could understand and appreciate was tough enough. But then to try to figure out all the subtleties of it with lots of instructors we don't know and frankly don't know their level of ability to facilitate. So we did a word by word guide for facilitators. This is what you say, and this is what you do. It was, pretty dense. So we get into this session before it's going to go out to all the congressional districts, and we learned so many things from this because they were so sharp. They said, this doesn't. I don't know how to explain this. Can you, in some way, make this more clear? Can you clean this slide up? Because of course we had slide decks and all of these other things. And I would say that even though we had it pretty well where we wanted it, there was those minor tweaks. And this was an in-person implementation mode. This wasn't even online, which adds a whole different level of complexity. But so we go through the pilot, and we did a see one, do one, and we had them for 2 days, so we could do that. And we stayed up all night, fixed the things we found on the first day, put them into it. We did the see one, do ones. And when we got the evaluations back from the facilitators after these went out across the country, it was 98% they felt comfortable using this and confident in it. And I honestly don't believe if we wouldn't have done the pilot that first day, and we did it with the ISD team. I mean, we went through and delivered it, not even the trainers, because we thought if anybody knew how to do it, we should know how to do it. Um, yeah, right, Chuck.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, we learned pretty quickly. Of course, we had 2 weeks to do it. Okay, and I'll put that as a caveat, but it doesn't matter. We'd have made the same mistakes if we'd had 2 years, probably.
There's always something you can
Always.
tweak. I think as perfect as you can possibly get it, there's always going to be something you can tweak. So, my next question to you then is, how do we know when we're done pilot testing? Because and how deep do we go with it? Because
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
about my marketing team, and I think about
Yeah. Yeah.
how many opinions we have. And
Yep.
when I send a video out to my team for review, there are potentially 7 to 10 people looking at this video and giving me all their different opinions. Now, that's a lot. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen at that point. And so that would be
Yeah.
a question I have is how much is too much or how much is what's that Goldilocks? Is there such a
Well,
thing?
Chuck's rule on all of this is when you get to 90%, call it quits. You're never going to have 100%. If you can get to 90%, yeah, you can determine what that is, to your benefit or others. But I always have a 90% rule. I never have a perfect rule because it doesn't exist.
I like that.
And the other thing is sometimes design team has to make decisions. You work with clients, you work with managers and whoever else in this process. But I can remember one time I had a group that just wasn't functioning, and we had to decide on a color scheme for the materials. And it took 6 months to determine what color teal was. And you know me well enough to know that I don't suffer a lot of silliness. I mean, I don't like my time wasted with insignificant matters, but this group of folks could not agree on what color teal was.
I have to laugh because I remember when I was trying to come up with the branding for this channel,
Uh-huh.
you said to me, I don't care what color it is. I don't care if
Don't.
it's teal. I don't care what color teal it is. And now I understand the
Now you
context of that
understand my teal
conversation
history.
because I thought,
But
okay, maybe I won't use teal just because he doesn't seem to like the color teal by the way.
yeah,
But what I'm inferring from how he's saying this, I'm just going
yeah,
to go with blue.
yeah. But can you imagine? So,
No.
that level of silliness will be all through projects, depending on the group. If there's political things going on behind the scene you don't know about, or a lack of leadership. There's all kind of stuff going on. So the 90% rule was we said, okay, we're going to vote and then I'm going to decide. And at that point, I was the administrator responsible for it. I was trying to be nice, but at some point you have to make decisions. So I decided what color teal was. And, of course, half the group loved it, half the group wanted to fire me. And that's fine. I mean, it comes with the territory. But that's the level of silliness you get. So if I can get to 90%, if I could say I feel comfortable that the errors from here on out are going to be minor and I mostly know what they are. Um, but I've seen designers try to be perfect, and you will never sleep. You will never reach perfection because something will happen. It always happens.
Well,
So,
that's good advice because I think, well, I'm a perfectionist by nature, and I've learned over the
yes.
years not to be because you'll
hmm
never press that go button. And that's a problem in any kind of work that you do. You have to, at one point, press that go button and be okay with it. So, my question to you about pilot testing is there a process that you go through that's
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
formula? Is it easy enough to talk about here, or is that a little bit? Maybe it's another video that we talk about that.
Well, I think it could definitely be another video, but I think what you have to look at is part of the design team's job. If you're working by yourself, it's part of your job. You've got to determine what are the Achilles heels of your plan. Okay, what are the things that can cause it to fail? What are the delicate points here? So if you're working with a learning management system on the line, um, one of the big things I always worry about, can students navigate your course? Do they know how to get to the materials? Or are there enough instructions in there for them to do different things? So I spend a lot of time having students go through and look at things before I actually turn it live. So to carry that farther, back to my example about the course we did in 2 weeks, I actually had my sister look at the instructor's manual, and she knows nothing about politics. She was an English professor. So, it was completely out of her area. And I said, just tell me if you could pick this up and use it. Because that was my point of happiness was, did the manual make sense? Is this something that was functional? And she sat there Thanksgiving afternoon because we worked straight through Thanksgiving. And she said, I don't know about anything about you're talking about, but if I was going to teach this, I could do the things that you asked me to do. And so I always worry about transferability. Are my instructions clear? If I'm doing instructor's guides, do folks really know what's expected of them? And then you go back to the other stuff. Do I have real evaluation tasks? Can I determine mastery? Am I clear about my objectives so that I have performance agreement? And on and on and on. So if I have personalities that I got to worry about or other population issues. So part of my pilot approach is, have I amalgamated this information to the point where I feel comfortable? I've got at least 60 to 70% of this group that can do what I want them to do. I mean, because you always have to think about where's a sweet spot with your population, because you're always going to have ups and downs, overperformers, underperformers. That's part of it. You have to accept that. But from a pilot perspective, have I got the bulk of people where I need them to be? Do I really appreciate what they bring to this? Can they perform these things? Is my course too long or is my course too short? Have I provided the right materials? As I said with online, can I do navigation? Can they get through this course? Where's the panic button online? Where do they go when they can't get an answer? And so all these things that experience brings to you, you start to come up with a list of things you look at each time, which is what I do. So here's the golden 15 or 20 things that I will always look at and make sure that there's something you can do. So in my case with design teams, which, you get a certain point in your career, you got a lot of people doing things. We sat down and went through every course. We'd sit at a table, and if it was a 1 hour course, it would take us a morning. If it was a 1 week course, it might take us a week. We'd sit there and go through every single element of it as a design team and start to flag things that didn't make sense to us or that weren't working. So there's lots of ways to do it. Everybody will do it differently. But I always like to get people that weren't involved in the content and weren't involved in the course to look at it to see if it made sense to them. If it did, then I felt like I had a fighting chance.
I like that idea. I feel like that's probably what I should have done with this is possibly had somebody who has never maybe even gone onto Zoom before to
Yeah.
host something, to follow the instructions and see if they could follow it. My mother would have been a great person to do that
Yeah.
because
I mean,
she
absolutely. Pick
she
somebody that you
seriously,
don't think has any interest in this. I mean, there were times
absolutely.
when I would grab people out of the hall,
Mm,
in organizations, you know everybody, right? You know the people in the kitchen, you know the
right.
people, the maintenance crews that do all the work anyway. And I would bring in people that had no interest in ISD or the content. And I'd say, look at this and tell me if this makes sense to you. Tell me what doesn't make sense to you. And the beauty of that is you take it out of the comfort zone of those that have been continuously looking at it, which is what you were saying about your familiarity with the content. It created a vacuum from you about what other people know. So if you bring
Absolutely.
in somebody like your mom or a neighbor or your partner or whoever, that set of eyes that's not related to your content, your course, or your process will tell you so many amazing things.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, and I'm definitely going to follow that moving forward. Well, this has been very insightful as always. I love picking your brain, Chuck, about these types of things. And I appreciate you kind of helping me work through that little issue that I had with this issue that I had with the training module that I created, and how pilot testing could have really alleviated a lot of the problems that the person unfortunately had to suffer this weekend, and 100 people viewing had to suffer. But thankfully, no one died from the situation and everything was fine. I always go back
All
to we're
great.
not performing brain surgery. So as long
That's
as,
great.
yeah. But anyway, I hope that everybody listening has taken away some great things from this conversation as well. We love to hear from you. We want to hear what kind of topics you want to cover. Feel free to chat those in there in the comment section here on the video. We will definitely, consider all topics. So let us know which ones you'd like to cover. And subscribe if you want to learn how to become a better instructional designer. This is the place to do it. Subscribe, and we'll bring you some new videos every week. Take care.